You can afford it. You know you can afford it. And you still put it back. Not because you are bad with money, not because you are irresponsible, because somewhere inside you a calculation runs automatically before your conscious mind has finished forming the thought, and it always arrives at the same answer: put it back. If you grew up working class, if your family counted carefully, if money was always the thing that determined whether the week was safe or not, your brain learned something before you ever had income of your own. It learned that spending was a risk, and that lesson is still running now. Today, with verified research from Harvard and Princeton, we are going to name exactly what is happening in your brain every time you stand at a checkout and feel that pull. Because by the end of this, you will understand why it was never about the money, and it was never a character flaw. Most people call this being careful, being responsible, being smart with money, and from the outside, it looks exactly like that. But there is a difference between choosing not to spend and being unable to spend freely, even when you choose to. One is a decision, the other is a nervous system response. People who grew up in working class or financially uncertain households do not just learn practical money habits, they learn something deeper. Their brain builds what behavioral economists describe as scarcity residue, the trace of financial constraint that remains in automatic behavior long after the constraint itself has ended. The account changed, the residue did not. And here's what makes this specific to you. This is not anxiety. This is not fear. This is your first-generation brain, your working-class upbringing, running a program that once kept your family safe. The program is still running. The emergency it was built for is over. In 2013, Harvard economist Sendhil Mullainathan and Princeton psychologist Eldar Shafir published research that changed how scientists understand the relationship between financial scarcity and the brain. They studied one question: what does not having enough actually do to the way a person thinks? The finding was precise and documented. Financial scarcity captures cognitive bandwidth, the mental capacity available for decisions, planning, and processing, reducing what is available for everything else. Not because people experiencing scarcity are less intelligent, because financial scarcity is itself a cognitive task. It runs constantly. It competes for the same mental resources as every other decision in a person's life. Every calculation, every risk scan, every silent, "can we afford this?" all of it ran simultaneously and consumed bandwidth that other people had available for everything else. Now, here's what their subsequent research confirmed, and this is the part that explains your checkout moment. The cognitive patterns built under financial scarcity, the automatic calculations, the risk scanning, the habitual caution, do not disappear when financial circumstances improve. Mullainathan's research on what he called the bandwidth tax showed that these automatic behaviors become the brain's default pattern for financial decisions. They were used so consistently for so many years that they became the brain's first response, not a choice that runs after thought, but a response that runs before it. Your checkout calculation is not a decision. It is a default, built before you had any say in it, running before conscious thought catches up. Here's what actually happened. Long before you had income of your own, before you ever stood at a checkout with your own card, your brain was watching. In a home where money was unpredictable, where the month was always a calculation, your brain absorbed a specific set of rules, not through conversations, not through lectures, through observation, through the way your parents checked prices, through the way certain things were put back, through the specific silence that fell when an unexpected bill arrived. Your brain drew conclusions. Spending before necessity is dangerous. Safety is measured by what you have spent, not by what you have earned. The person who spends freely lives in a different world from you. And those conclusions did not stay in that kitchen. They came with you into every shop, into every restaurant menu, into every salary negotiation where you accepted the first number offered because something inside you said, that is already more than you were supposed to have. Harvard economist Raj Chetty spent years tracking millions of Americans who crossed economic class lines. What his mobility data showed was consistent across millions of people. The life changed faster than the nervous system believed it had. External circumstances, income, environment, professional status, updated first. The automatic behavioral patterns built during the years of financial constraint updated significantly slower, not because of unwillingness, because behavioral defaults built through years of consistent repetition do not update on the schedule of changed bank balances. They update on the schedule of the nervous system, and the nervous system moves at its own pace. You know exactly what this looks like in your own life. You stand in a shop holding something you genuinely want, something you budgeted for, something you can clearly afford. You check the price, then you check it again. Then you put it back, and you spend the next 3 days thinking about whether that was the right decision, even though the decision is already made. You get a bonus at work, a real one, and instead of any version of celebration, your brain immediately runs a calculation. How long would this last if everything fell apart? Not if things go well, if everything fell apart. The bonus is real and present and yours. Your nervous system is already spending it on hypothetical emergencies that do not exist. Or this one, you watch a colleague order without looking at the right side of the menu. No price check, no internal negotiation, just what do I want? And you feel something complicated. Not quite envy, not quite confusion, something closer to, what does that actually feel like? What is it like to want something and simply choose it, without the weight of the calculation arriving first? These are not bad habits. These are fossils. Precise records of an environment that no longer exists, still determining behavior in an environment that does. Every piece of financial advice misses this completely. Budget better. Track your spending. Give yourself permission to enjoy your money. As if the nervous system that spent 20 years learning that spending was a risk will update itself because you downloaded an app. It will not. Because what you are carrying is not a money habit. It is scarcity residue. The behavioral trace of a financial environment that shaped your automatic responses before you were old enough to question whether those responses still applied. Mullainathan and Shafir documented it across thousands of people. Chetty tracked it across class lines. This is not a character flaw. This is a documented and studied phenomenon. The person who cannot spend freely without running the calculation, that person is the same person who built financial stability through decades of careful automatic caution. The restraint that feels like a limitation now is the same restraint that kept your family's finances from collapsing in years when the margin for error was zero. These are not two separate things. The caution and the stability you built, they share an origin. You cannot have received one without having been shaped by the other. Understanding that does not erase the calculation, but it ends the war you have been having with yourself about why you cannot simply enjoy what you have built. You are not bad with money. You are not broken. You are someone whose working-class upbringing, whose first-generation experience, installed a system of automatic financial caution so precise and so thorough that it outlasted the environment that required it. The scarcity residue is real. The research confirms it. And the fact that you can see it now, that you have a name for the calculation that runs before your conscious mind catches up, means something has already shifted. Not fixed overnight, and not erased, but named. And named things can be examined, and examined things can be worked with. If this gave you language for something you have been carrying quietly, send it to the person who needs the words. You already know who that is. And if this channel matters to you, honest psychology, verified research, no recycled self-help advice, subscribe, because next week we go somewhere even more specific, the psychology of people who hide where they came from, code switching, class shame, the version of yourself you perform in professional spaces, and what it costs to maintain it. We'll see you there.